Nearly 100 black pastors met with Donald Trump yesterday at Trump Towers in New York. It was all about his presidential campaign. Of course, this was after a week of drama where initially they were supposed to meet, supposed to endorse Trump. Then they got criticism, then they backed off of that. Then they still had the meeting. So what actually took place? Was it actually worthy of anything in particular? There was a brief media scrum after they met, and here was Donald Trump standing with a few of them.
I thought it was an amazing meeting. I thought that I met some fantastic people, some of whom I've known. I thought it was an absolutely amazing. You know, it lasted for 2.5 hours. But we came up with lots of good ideas and lots of future ideas, but I thought it was an amazing meeting.
And how did you address some of the concerns that were raised?
Well, I think we'll be addressing them over the coming months and even over the coming years. I mean, these are deep-seated difficulties that certain communities have, and we're going to address them. And certainly if I'm put in a position where I can do something about them, which in this case happens to be president, we will be working very, very closely with everybody, and we're going to be solving a lot of problems. Right now you have black youth. If you look at African-American youth, where it's 51 and 55 and 57% unemployed. You have African-American people of different ages where it's double and triple other numbers. So we're looking at a lot of different things, but this meeting was amazing, amazing people. We must have had close to 100 people in the room.
All right, but one thing I have not heard out of the meeting, actual policy. Joining us right now is someone who was actually in the room, and that is joining us via Skype from Richmond, Virginia, Dr. Steve Parson with the Richmond Christian Center. Dr. Parson, glad to have you here. First and foremost, you had a number of folks who were there. We heard the soundbite there. What specifically, in terms of policy or agenda items, was discussed that Donald Trump committed to the pastors in the room?
Well, actually, as we said in the tape, we spoke with about a number of different things. Now, if you're talking about specifically about the economy, he did bring up the fact of bringing the manufacturers and large companies that have left the United States and gone overseas. He was going to give them incentives and bring them back to the United States. And of course, as they come back, they will also bring back jobs. Okay. He also mentioned about taxes, that the taxes, the poor would not be taxed. And
hold on one second. We say the poor would not be taxed. How so?
Yeah, in other words, if you have a certain lesser amount of income, then you'd have less taxes, if any.
Yeah, but actually, you look at right now the tax code. That's actually how it exists right now. If you're actually poor in America, you're actually getting more money back as opposed to actually paying taxes. So, what is his specific tax plan as it relates to folks who are poor?
Right. Well, you said it. If that's the way it is, that's the way it is. What really caught my attention is the fact that he was going to produce jobs.
How?
Jobs. Well, one of the things that I suggested, the fact that he's a billionaire businessman. And businesses, jobs come from people who are in business. He has the ability to create wealth and create businesses. He also has a book, a couple books out, Why We Want You Rich, and he's going to encourage the Black American especially to entrepreneurship.
But here's my question. Pastor. In 2008, African American business received 8.2% of all small business loans in America. In 2013, the number went down to 1.7%. $23.09 billion in small business loans given out in 2013. Black folks got $385 million. And so, what did Donald Trump specifically say about getting capital to Black-owned businesses?
Let me just share this. Okay, I personally don't believe that it's the government's responsibility to provide jobs for people. I believe that's something that's the people's responsibility.
So, Pastor, if that's the case, then if Donald Trump is president, how would he then do that? Because he wouldn't be a businessman; he would be president. And so, if he is saying as president, I can create jobs as the government, but you're saying the government can't create jobs. That's an oxymoron.
I said that I personally don't believe that it's the government's responsibility to create jobs. I believe it is the government's responsibility to help the private sector and help the people, especially black people, create their own jobs. Because after all, I will tell you this, the black community, we have the fewest of any ethnic race in America that are self-employed or own a business.
Well, no, you're absolutely right. First of all, there are 1.9 million black-owned businesses in America. 1.8 million of those have 0 employees. Black women start businesses at a faster rate than anybody else. But I specifically asked you about capital, and that is, did he say anything about how he would drive more capital to black-owned businesses, not only to start businesses, but also to grow scale?
Oh, so what you're actually talking about is giving us capital.
No. What I'm talking about is, and I cited a very specific stat, and that is in 2008, under President George W. Bush, 8.2% of all small business loans went to African Americans. In 2013, because of the home foreclosure crisis, that number went down to about 1.7%. So what I'm saying is, as president, what policies will he put in place to drive the Small Business Administration, to drive the Department of Commerce, the Department of Treasury, to ensure that African Americans are being able to access capital?
Yeah, well, actually, he didn't get into the details of that, but the whole meeting was about doing that.
No, but I still don't understand, Pastor. This is just me, okay? Because I questioned Hillary Clinton when we were in South Carolina.
What I'm saying is, ask me questions and then give me the opportunity to answer it, rather than cutting me off and question. I was like, so what I said was that meeting, and you couldn't talk about everything in the meeting because there was other things that were brought up. What I did speak about, and he spoke about doing whatever is necessary to help the inner city, to help the minorities create their own businesses, which create jobs. So he did.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this question: 53% of black wealth was wiped out due to the home foreclosure crisis between 2007 and present day. Did that issue of black home foreclosure, did that come up in yesterday's meeting?
Did not come up.
Okay. You have significant. So if you're talking about wealth creation, and you're meeting with somebody who's in real estate and made their money with housing. And we know that African Americans, most Americans, wealth creation is established through home ownership. How did that not come up?
No, because wealth creation is not only established through housing.
No.
Wealth creation. Well, see, there you go again. Listen.
Go ahead.
Established by knowing what to do to create wealth.
No, Reverend, I'm sorry. You're absolutely wrong. In America, historically, wealth has been created largely through home ownership. That's a fact. Now, as somebody who's primarily focused on housing in my career as a city hall reporter and a county government reporter, what I'm trying to understand is, if you know, as an African American, black folks have largely created wealth primarily through home ownership, and you saw 53% of all black wealth wiped out due to home foreclosure crisis, and the reason we get less capital because of small businesses, because no home, no loan, no collateral. I'm trying to understand, how could you be in a meeting as a pastor with somebody who's a real estate developer who's made his money through housing and housing not come up?
Well, because that's not the only way that he's created his wealth, through housing or real estate. But what I'm telling you is this, is that what the African and Black American community needs, first of all, want to do is create their own businesses and generate their own capital.
Okay, Reverend, no disrespect, but let me be perfectly clear here. If you don't have wealth, if you don't have a stack of dollars to start your own business, like in the case of Donald Trump, where his daddy gave him millions to start a business, if you don't have that, Reverend, then you largely have the one piece of collateral that you can utilize to get a small business loan, which is your home equity. And so, as a result, in the last 7 years, when black folks have lost their homes, they have been unable to then go get a loan to start a business because they have no collateral. So if you have no home, no loan, no business. And so I'm trying to understand, if I'm meeting with a presidential candidate and housing is a major issue for African Americans, gentrification, major issue, renting versus owning, how does that not come up out of all those pastors?
This is why. It's because other things came up.
Such as?
At the same time, let me just say this. See, first of all, as a minister, I believe that the Lord has given us the power to get wealth.
You understand? So that's something that comes from the inside. We as a people have to actually believe that we can be business owners rather than having, well, is somebody going to give me a job? Because, you know, they might not give you a job. Then what you going to do?
Let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question, Pastor. We know that in African Americans who have a college degree, they have a lesser chance of getting a job than white with a high school diploma. We also know that African Americans overwhelmingly support the issue of charter schools and also vouchers. Did that come up in yesterday's meeting?
No, didn't have time for that because other things were coming up.
Okay, okay, all right, hold up. So I need you to help me, Pastor. And this, I'm being very serious here. If housing didn't come up, if education didn't come up, what did you talk about for 2.5 hours?
It did come up, but it's not the kind of education that teaches you to go to school, get your education, get your degree so you can get a job and then work for the people that gave you the job, and then you'd be fortunate if you got enough at retirement. We talk about financial education, financial literacy that teaches you how to understand money and how to create businesses which create jobs. You see, so that's the kind of education that came up. Are you with me?
We're looking at the issue of social justice all across this country. We're looking at police officers in the case of Chicago who has been charged with killing Laquan McDonald. We see Tamir Rice in Cleveland. We see Freddie Gray. What was discussed yesterday when it comes to criminal justice? Did Donald Trump make any commitments as it related to supporting initiatives by Campaign Zero, Black Lives Matter, or others when it comes to criminal justice?
If this is what came up. What came up was that it's not so much as far as the have-nots, it's the ones who know and the ones who know not.
Pastor, first of all, is there? I hear a loud buzz. Is that your cell phone or what is that? I hear a very loud buzz, so it's stopping me from hearing you.
Okay, yeah, the phone's going off the chart right now. So, yeah, that's the cell phone.
Okay.
Listen, let me. First of all, slow down. Okay, let me slow down.
Well, actually, Pastor, first of all, we've been talking for 13 minutes, and so I might talk fast, but as my some folks say, you got to listen fast. But go ahead with your comment.
Most of the talking, okay? So what I'm saying is income inequality basically is those who know what to do and those who don't know what to do, okay? And basically education is a strong part in being able to have the wisdom and the knowledge to be able to start businesses.
Okay, but Pastor, I'm asking you a question about the issue of criminal justice. What was discussed policy-wise? Did Donald Trump make any commitments as it related to the issue of criminal justice? Did he back body cameras? Did he back an independent prosecutor in the cases where officers actually shoot and kill someone? Did he actually take any position on mandatory minimums? Did he take any position when it comes to reducing the crack and powder cocaine disparity?
No. What came up is that the injustices that were being done and how he was going to do something to as far as the bad police.
How?
You know,
so he said he was going to do something. What did he say he was going to do?
Training came up, you know, in the discussion where one of the ministers mentioned about training, or he mentioned about training. The officers need to have better training, okay, and that he would do whatever he can to bring justice, okay. But at the same time, this is only a 2-hour meeting. We had 109 pastors. A number of pastors were sharing their concerns and mentioning things and asking questions. So it wasn't really that much time to be able to put in a specific policy.
Pastor, here's what I don't understand, Pastor. Okay, Pastor Parson, I got to be very honest with you. I moderated a 1-hour and 10-minute town hall with Hillary Clinton. I opened up with 15 minutes of questions. I literally covered more policy in 5 minutes than you described in 15 minutes of a 2.5-hour meeting with Donald Trump. So here's my deal. I don't have a problem with black pastors meeting with anybody. Donald Trump, I've had Rand Paul on this show. I've had Lindsey Graham on this show. I've had Ben Carson on this show. But I haven't heard a single thing policy-wise that you've uttered that was actually discussed with Donald Trump that black folks literally can say, oh, I actually heard something tangible that I can actually go back and chew on other than financial literacy?
Yeah, well, just give it time then, okay? Just give it time. I know Hillary's not having any meetings with any black ministers. You know anybody?
But you're actually wrong. You're wrong. And Senator Rand Paul has met with black pastors. This is not the first time a Republican candidate has met with black pastors. So
I will tell you this, for a Republican to get 109 black ministers, I'm telling you, that's almost a miracle. Because
actually, it's not a miracle, because Texas Governor George W. Bush did the exact same thing. So this is not the first time that it's actually happened.
Okay, well, as you do know, up until Trump, 95% of African Americans are liberal Democrats. Is that correct?
No, first of all, that's the presidential campaign. But what I also know is when Governor Mike Huckabee ran in Arkansas, he got 48% of the black vote. I also know that when Senator George Voinovich ran for not only for Cleveland mayor, but governor of Ohio and U.S. senator, he got 40% of the black vote. So, look, I understand politics. I understand what has happened on state, local, and national level. The point here is this here. What does somebody talk about when they meet with black folks? And what I'm saying, Pastor, I've listened to you, I've seen the periscopes, I've seen other interviews, and what I've heard is, oh, it was great and wonderful, there was lots of love in the room, but I haven't heard jack that something that is substantive, that somebody can say, oh, I can latch onto that, and now I'm hearing something that's policy oriented. My last question for you, did you at least leave the meeting with a commitment of Trump saying, I'm going to put these issues on paper and present it to you to take back to your congregations?
Oh, no, he didn't specifically say it in those words, but basically he said it in spirit, that he's going to commit to continuing to work with the black American community to address the issues that are our issues.
Okay,
are you with me? This is just the beginning of him working.
Got it.
With us in order to make America great.
Okay. All right. Well, here's the deal. I look forward to more of these conversations, but I look more forward to actually having substantive policy that you can actually talk about, as opposed to, hey, sort of is, well, I'm going to work on some stuff, because that's just way too general. Black folks don't have time for working on some stuff. We actually need to hear something substantive. So, Pastor Parson, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
But we need to hear what we can do, not what somebody can do for us.
Actually, no, we need to hear both, because if somebody's saying they're going to be president, I can guarantee you when he met with the white evangelicals, there was some real discussion about policy. When he meets with bankers, they discuss policy. When he meets with the real estate folks and lawyers and doctors, they talking policy, not just stuff. But
yeah,
Pastor,
he has the ability, and he will be doing that in future meetings with us.
Okay. Well, I certainly hope he also sits down with black media, and we can actually ask these questions so the audience can hear versus what happens behind closed doors. Pastor Parson, we appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Kickstart your day at 7 and get the news you need from the perspective you want. News 1 Now with Roland Martin, every weekday morning at 7 on TV 1.